Hey everybody, what's up? Fuller here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to cover part 3 of our harmonics plugin series in Unreal Engine 5.4. Today we're going to be talking specifically about the step sequencer. If you haven't watched video 1 or 2, I suggest you go back and check those out first. So you'll be where we're at here. I'm also referencing some files we created in those videos. Or if you already understand some of that other stuff and you just want a little deep dive into the step sequencer, this is the right video for you. So let's jump on in. Okay, so in our last 2 videos, we made a Midi player and a fusion sampler that I used my custom tongue drum sounds. It sounded like this. And you can go check out that video. That was video 2. And then we used the Flight of the Bumblebee MIDI file to play a file. It sounded like this. Cool. Okay, so now, what if you want to use MIDI inside the Unreal Engine, but you don't want to use a MIDI file? And this is where the step sequencer comes in. What the step sequencer is, it is kind of like an old school analog sequencer that you would use in a modular synth on a keyboard. And it basically what it does is it just steps through musical grids and triggers the notes that you want to trigger when you want to trigger it. This might also be referred to as a pattern sequencer, like a drum sequencer. Anyone who's ever used a drum sequencer is very familiar with this layout. So let's take a look at it. So what we're going to do is, in our previous example, we're using a MIDI player. We're going to get rid of the MIDI player. We are going to we're going to leave the transport and the clock generator, and we're going to use our fusion sampler that we made. So now what we want to do is we want to basically make our own MIDI file pattern using those tongue drum samples that I made, and we're going to make a simple pattern. We're going to layer it, maybe do some chord progression, some cool stuff like that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to right click on our in our content browser, and we're going to go down to Audio, Harmonics, MIDI step sequencer. It's actually the only thing you can do from the menu. It says right here, this class represents a step sequence table. It is used by the Metasound step sequence node to generate MIDI note on-off messages. So let's double click that. Let's go MSS MIDI step sequencer. I don't know. Well, that's good, I guess. I haven't really used this much, so I don't know what the naming convention would be. But who knows? So let's just call this tongue drum. Okay, so when we double click this, we are going to see a grid of 8 rows by 8. Wait, which one is columns? Let's just double check here. Yeah, okay, so this is a row. So this right here, row 1, we see 8 rows and 8 columns. Now, both these are adjustable, but if you click 1, it's going to default to 4. So the minimum amount of columns you can have is 4, which makes sense because would you really want to divide a beat up by less than 4? Then you start getting into odd time signatures, but I digress. So let's go with, for now, let's go 1 row and let's go 8 columns. So let's look at this for a second. So essentially what we're doing is we've created one page, which this is a page here. This is a sequence. So what this is going to do, when I hit start in my Metasound, it's going to take our MIDI clock tempo and it's going to pulse these notes on the grid. So we'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's if we had a 4-bar measure with 8th notes. If it was 16th notes, it'd be 1E and 2E and this all depends on how you divide up this row and how you assign the quarter note. We'll talk about that in a minute. But right now we're looking at what I would call a classic sequencer. Now let's do this. Let's go over here. Let's add 1 more row, just so we have 2 rows. So now we have 2 rows of 8 columns. I'm gonna call these columns here, I'm gonna call these beats, because essentially that's what they are. This is a beat. Now we have 8 beats this way and we have 8 beats this way. Now the rows are what we would call a vertical stack. All of these happen at the same time. So if I had 4 rows, all of these columns would fire on the same beat. So this would be beat 1 and beat 2 and beat 3. And so all this is doing basically, it's making a musical grid for you. Now, what does this have to do with MIDI? Well, this grid right here, it's going to do one thing. It is going to send a MIDI on note to your sequencer wherever I turn it on. Right now, it's all off, but if I want to turn this note on, I just simply click on it. And then now current cell is enabled. Click to disable it. So I turned on this first beat. Let's turn on the second beat, third beat, and fourth beat. So now if we are playing, actually, let's just turn on beat 1 and 2. So if we were using 16th notes, this would be 1 E and 2 E and then it would loop. So if I wanted 16 notes, I could go in here under columns and I could change this to 16. And so now I go 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. So what this is going to do is it's going to send a MIDI note on to the sequence player. What note is it going to send? Great question. This note right here. So right now we are defaulting to 60, which is middle C. Okay, so middle C is going to fire on every downbeat if these are set to quarter notes. So if this is 1 E and 2 E and it's going to fire. Now, let's just test this out. So I've got, all it's going to do is send 60 every 4 clicks or 4 beats. So what we're going to do, how do we add this in? Okay, let's go back to our Metasound. If you want to follow along and you haven't built this Metasound, well, you can pause this video and just look at how I built it, or you can go back and watch video 1 and 2 where we build this. So, but for right now, we're going to take this step sequencer and we're going to add it here. So we already have the trigger, we already have the MIDI clock generator. I'm going to right click, step sequencer. And you can see here, now I can add the step sequence player, which is great. So how do we play this? Well, we're going to come off our transport node and we're going to put that there. Let's move this over a little bit so you can see it. Then we're going to come out with the MIDI stream to the Fusion sampler. Now remember, the Fusion sampler is what's going to trigger the samples that we made in video number 2. The other thing we need to do is we need to select our sequence that we made, and I only have one. This is the sequence, the step sequencer we just made that looks like this, okay? Then we need a MIDI clock, because remember, right now it doesn't know what tempo to play this back at. That's where the MIDI clock comes in. We have our MIDI clock generator here from our previous, when we used our MIDI file. Now, that's all we need. So when I hit play, let's listen to what happens. Dun, 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 dun. So what we're getting now is we're getting this tempo 148. Actually, let me slow it down. Let me put it at 112. So we're going to get slower. So we got we got 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So you actually don't hear these because they're not being played. Now, let me just subdivide. Let me add that extra beat in there. Now let's add and. So it'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it'll sound like this. See? Pretty cool. The other thing is, while we're here, let's change this velocity to about 102. Yeah. So now we're going to turn it down a little bit. It's going to set a different velocity for it. Okay, great. Actually, you know what? Let's make this the downbeat. Let's put this full velocity, which should be 127. Yeah, 127. 127 is full velocity in the MIDI language world. So that would be, if you were a scalar 0 to 1, that would be 1. 127 is the highest velocity, which is loudest. 0 is the lowest velocity, which is softest. So now we're going to have full volume. So this is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now if I made all of these green, it would be 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So let's listen to that. Cool, so you can kind of see what this is doing. It's playing that step sequencer. Here, we can do some other stuff too. We can set the max columns, additional octaves, step size quarter notes, okay? So these are quarter note step sizes now. So let's change this to 1. So now the step size is going to be a quarter note for each step. So now you're gonna hear that a lot slower. It's playing every step as a quarter note. So 112 is 1, 2, 3. It basically turned every note into a quarter note, which we don't want. So we want to keep this. If we did 0.5, it would be playing eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But we're going to do the standard drum sequencer, which is typically 16th notes. Okay, so it's basically just playing the sequence over and over and over, much like an old drum sequencer. So typically on a drum sequencer, you'll see probably minimal 4 rows, right? Probably most likely you'll see 8 rows, 8 by 16. This is pretty common. Like the old CD303, it had 1 row sequencer, so you could sequence notes and you could change each of these notes. But let's say, for instance, we wanted to play different notes. How would we do that? Okay, well, let's make another row. Let's give a second row, and we're going to assign this to let's assign this to E, which would be let's see, 62 would be D, 64 would be E. So we're going to go we're going to change this so that we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and playing on C, okay? And in between those, we're gonna play E. And it's gonna sound like this. So we've got offbeats playing the E note. So listen to what that sounds like. Pretty cool. You could actually add another row. Let's add another row. Let's make this F. So we're gonna go, or no, let's make it a G. So da 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 da. So we're gonna make do do mi so mi do, which would be C, E, and then G, which would be 67. So 64 is E, 65 is F, 67 is G. So we're gonna go boom boom bam. And actually, let's play it together. Or no, wait. For now, let's just do that pattern. So we're gonna go C, E, G, E, C, E, G, E, C, E. There we go. So see what we're doing? Basically an arpeggio, and it sounds like this. This will be nice. Very cool. That's a basic arpeggio. Now what we could do, we could also make this, let's put this velocity at 90, and then let's put this velocity at 75. So we'll get, that C will be a little stronger than the other ones. Very cool. So you can see how with my tongue drum samples and a basic step sequencer, I just made a chord progression, like a little chord riff, which is really cool. So now, let's say I wanted to do one more layer. Let's put one more row in there just for fun. And then let's put an octave C. So the octave higher will be 72. We're gonna ba da da do that. We'll put the C octaves every other beat. So we're gonna get the C, high C octave on the C and the G, and that would sound like this. Pretty cool, kind of hypnotic. You can see where this would really be helpful for procedurally generated music. You can do some really crazy things. Okay, so now let's look at this. Let's add a second page to it. So let's go 2 pages, okay? And then let's go to page 2, and let's change the pattern a little bit here. So let's mix it up. So page 2 is actually gonna play a different rhythm. And let's just pick some, all these are gonna sound pretty cool. So let's put E and G there. So we're gonna make a chord there. And let's see what that sounds like. And just throw that in there. So now it's gonna, we're gonna tell it to auto page. So it's going to play through the first page, then the second page, and then loop around. There you go. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're making a song basically, and it's going to auto page through that. Now you could also manipulate those things, the loop and the auto page and stuff like that. You could add a velocity multiplier just like you could a regular Metasound. So if you wanted to control that, no problem. Max columns. You could manipulate the max column, which would be interesting. Let's see what happens when we manipulate max column. And let's go between 1 and let's go between 4 minimum and 16. Oops. 4. We're going to manipulate between 4 and 16. So let's see what happens. Pretty cool. So this is super cool for procedural stuff because you could tell it, hey, every 3 times, change the columns to 3. So it can create all sorts of really cool syncopation and offbeat procedural stuff. You can add additional octaves. Let's see what happens here. Let's add 3 octaves because I'm extremist. Okay. Wow, okay. Let's go -1. See what happens. That's cool. The number of octaves to add to the authored step. So we're just basically transposing it up an octave here. Cool. Which is neat for procedural stuff because you can just tell it randomly jump up an octave or whatnot. And here's cool. I'm assuming this active page, if I put this on 1, it's going to just play page 1. Holy crap, that is wild. Active page. The page of the step sequence to play. Okay, let's go 2. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure why that's doing that. What did I do? Did I change something here? Oh, okay. Let's move. I had the quarter notes at 0. All right, let's move this back. All right. Oh, wait, no. Let's go to 20. That's what I had, 0.25. Okay, we're back. Okay, that's what we're doing. All right, active page. Let's just play page 1. Here we go. The problem with computers is they'll do exactly what you tell it. You'll think it's messed up. It's just you. Okay. Cool. So if I go here, let me just play page 2. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to turn off auto page. Here we go. Now it's just playing page 2. Now let's play page 1. Cool. So if we set this as a parameter, and we did input from 0 to 2, or let's go active page 1, page 2. Okay, so check this out. We're playing page 1. Now it's playing page 2. So you could see how you could set these with certain actions in the game. So when your player walks in somewhere, it plays a different. So this is just kind of shows you the power of the Harmonix plugin. This is just one quick step sequencer we made with a bunch of quick samples I threw together with the fan, the ceiling fan, and all that stuff. And it just kind of shows you some of the stuff that you can do with this. I mean, you can add tons of pages. 3, let's see how many pages you can add. Can you add 4? Yeah. Can you add 8? Yes. Can you add 10? I think, no, 8 is the maximum, so you can add up to 8 pages, which makes sense musically. You can add up to, let's see how many rows. 16. 24, 16. So you can add 16 rows and 32. Dang. Okay, 64. So you can add up to 8 pages, up to 16 rows, up to 64 steps. That's a lot of steps. Let's take this back to 16. And so you could technically then assign each of these notes. You could assign it chromatically. You could go 61, 62, 63. So now we're just assigning chromatic notes to the step sequencer. 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, and 72. And so we only need 13 rows because we're just playing one octave. So now we have all of these, and now let's just mess around with these. Let's start doing some funky stuff here. So let's do a chromatic mess around here. Let's go octave C here. Let's go B here. I'm just gonna do some random stuff. A. All right, yeah, okay. I'm just gonna go completely random, see what happens. But I'm gonna kind of keep it. I'll keep the F in here to give it some grounding. I'll throw a few G's in here. But I'm gonna keep the B. I'm gonna go minor third here, and let's see what happens. This is gonna sound a little funky, but that's okay. It's just an experiment. Let's check it out. Oh, and then let's also auto page it so it advances. And put down 0. Okay, here we go. Okay, so pretty crazy stuff. Cool. So that kind of shows you the power. Now, this would be really effective if you built like a drum machine. If you built a drum machine and you just said, okay, this is going to be kick here. If this was a kick drum, you could just go, okay, so we're going to go 8 columns. We're going to go boom, cack, boom, boom, cack, boom, cack, you know, or whatever like that. And then you can play that, and then you'll have a little drum beat if you had sounds. So you could use kick and snare. And what you could do is in your Fusion sampler, we could build a kick drum machine. So that instead of chromatically changing the notes, you know, C could be a kick drum, you know, D could be a snare, hi-hats, like a typical general MIDI sound. And then you could use the step sequencer all day long to program some really cool drum beats. So that's how the step sequencer works. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope you do some cool creative stuff. Hit me up if you make something cool. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to check it out. Again, thank you so much for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It's growing and it's fantastic, building great community, and the YouTube algorithm's picking it up, which is great. So getting more views, able to make more content, and continue to rock out Unreal Engine Metasound. So anyways, thanks again for checking it out, and we'll see you in the next video.